But let me just read the title of Mitt Romney's opinion piece that he wrote.
Yeah.
The president shapes the public character of the nation. Trump's character falls short. It's a big piece that he's written in the Washington Post, and it is searing. It is damning. If Trump thought he had a challenge in John McCain, if Trump thought there was a little challenge in Jeff Flake, I get a feeling Mitt Romney is going to bring in a whole new dose of reality for this president. Mitt's run for president himself, and he didn't win. And you know what he decided to do? Serve anyway. And I think Trump is going to regret not talking him out of this. There was some possibility he could have done that. Mitt Romney is making it very clear he's going to be much more than a thorn in President Trump's side. What's your gut on how that dynamic plays out?
You know, a couple of different things occurred to me after reading the piece last night, Mika. One was that there was an immediate round of nitpicking on Twitter about the piece, about Romney's motives. Well, we can't sit here every day and bemoan the fact that the vast majority, almost all of the Republican Party in the Senate and in the House, refused to speak out against this president's many transgressions and truth and duplicity and things like that. We can't do that and nitpick someone when they finally stand up and do speak out, as Mitt Romney did. Now, one of the things to understand about Mitt Romney is, and I know, Mika, you know this because you know his wife and you know him pretty well.
Yeah.
There's kind of a Boy Scout element to Mitt Romney. And I've got to assume, not knowing, but I've got to assume that he sat there and watched the president's behavior, listened to the president's language for all these many, many months. And running for re-election, he's enough of a politician. He didn't want to inject himself in between Donald Trump and the voters in Utah. But now is his time. And so what he wrote in the Washington Post, that's who Mitt Romney is.
That's who, and I wonder if America needs a Boy Scout right now. I would say there's a hunger for someone with a moral compass, for someone who will say it in real time. No one can take that away from Mitt Romney, not even Republicans who are sitting there now holding the bag, wondering what they do with this thing they've been carrying for 2 years. It's not working for them anymore. Look where we are. So we're going to dig into that more. Still ahead on Morning Joe.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.